Xenophobic violence erupts in South Africa yet again. What does this mean for foreign investments in the country? And are South Africa's leaders perhaps part of the problem? We'll be examining that question in a lot more detail live from Johannesburg in the next 30 minutes, but there's plenty more on the menu. The IMF boss is cautioning African countries over global economic events that may rattle the Africa Rising dream. And record iPhone phone sales drive Apple profits to their largest ever levels by any public company. Let's start in South Africa. Tensions are running high in townships across the country. Several people have been killed since violence broke out on the 19th of January in Soweto. A foreign shop owner over there shot and killed a teenage boy. Now, the businessman at the time claimed that the boy had attempted to rob him. That death, however, was the spark for a series of widespread incidents of vandalism and looting of foreign-owned businesses in what's being seen as a resurgence of xenophobic violence in Africa's second-largest economy. Back in 2008, over 60 foreign nationals were killed in South Africa as a wave of xenophobic attacks swept over the country. Sumitra Naidu has the details.
There's been conflicting reports over the number of people killed since the looting of foreign-owned shops started a week ago. Despite a steadier response to the wave of attacks spreading in townships across South Africa, government is reluctant to label the acts as xenophobia.
This time round, the police seem more jacked up, but we're still getting mixed messages from various leadership contradicting what national government is saying. So on the one hand, we've got some leaders saying, let's look at this closely. And then on the other hand, you have some leaders who are saying, no, this isn't xenophobia, this is criminality. That's very concerning.
But tensions are rising between locals and foreign business people. The looting that started in Soweto has now spread with reports of theft and vandalism in other townships. Angry locals have accused foreign business owners of operating illegally.
For most people who are, say, running a spaza shop or so on, you are likely to ensure that you have the right documents to allow you to be in the country, to be able to run your business, because you will be visited by the JMPD, you will be visited by the South African Police Services, and as a foreign business owner, unfortunately, you are very likely to be robbed and or have the kind of incidents that have been happening. Therefore, you are going to encounter the authorities. Therefore, your paperwork will need to be in order. So actually, you'll probably find that they do have the necessary paperwork. Same goes for trading licenses.
According to research, foreign-owned businesses are very important for the South African economy. These businesses have helped to create employment. They've also become convenient, especially in the townships, so people don't have to travel far for what they need. Pricing is often more competitive as well.
So you have the possibility of cheap, affordable food being provided by the informal sector, which will include some of these operators, these foreign entrepreneurs. They contribute employment, so they make jobs. They also contribute in other ways. The overwhelming majority of their supplies for their businesses are bought from the formal sector, so over 70% from wholesalers, formal sector wholesalers, retailers and manufacturers direct from factories. So they're paying VAT on the goods, so they're supporting South African businesses.
There's been several reports of violence and looting in other parts of Johannesburg, but police say these incidents are not linked to the looting of foreign-owned shops. Analysts, though, warn that this situation keeps arising in South Africa and has the potential to become more serious if not tackled urgently.
Based on research done from the IOM and the Centre for Migration at WITS and others, was that actually this isn't just about competition for resources, this isn't just about inequality, this isn't just about criminality, it's incredibly complicated. This is politicized ethnicity to the nth degree. Xenophobia is rooted in a discourse of racism, it's rooted in a discourse of learned behavior from apartheid, of othering, of saying you're not equal to us. We're having people in the township rise up and say to Somalis and to people from DRC and Zimbabwe, no, sorry, you don't have the right to live here.
A government task team will be established this week to tackle the underlying causes of the tensions between local and foreign business owners. The team is being led by Small Business Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu. Sumitra Naidu, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Let's get a better understanding of the developments in South Africa to put them into their proper context. And now joined by Roshan Dadu. She's a regional advocacy officer at the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants over in South Africa. She's live in Johannesburg right now. Let's start with the events of the 19th of January. To your knowledge, has anyone been arrested and prosecuted in connection to that initial fatal shooting?
Hi, good evening. Well, as far as we're aware from the police statistics, they say that around 153 people have been arrested, but we don't know yet of any prosecutions. We're not sure if these people have come to court yet or if any charges have been formally made against them.
Indeed. Let's focus on the comments here from the South African Minister in charge of Small Business Development, Lindiwe Zulu. Does the rest of the South African government share the sentiments she expressed in comments made to the Business Day?
Well, we assume that our ministers do speak on behalf of the government.
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Oh, so we're assuming that she does speak on behalf of the rest of the cabinet. And whilst we're pleased that they are establishing a task team, we are concerned that there has been a severe lack of political leadership on this issue and the reluctance on the part of the government to say that the attacks are also xenophobic as well as being criminal.
Indeed. We'll have to leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for your input tonight. That's Roshan Dadu, a regional advocacy officer at the Consortium for Refugees and Migrants in South Africa. Now, the IMF Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, has warned African economies that they could be hurt by the slowdown in China's economy and imminent rate hikes in the United States. She made those comments when speaking on a visit to Rwanda. She said the IMF's global economic forecasts have been revised downwards over the past couple of months, despite the enormous fall in benchmark oil prices. Brent crude is down over 50% since June last year. Now, she then called on policymakers to be vigilant across Africa and added that slower growth has implications for a continent that is now a lot more integrated into the global economy than ever before. Overall, the outlook for sub-Saharan Africa does remain promising at about 5%, but growth forecasts for the region have been cut due to lower oil and commodity prices and therefore lower earnings. Lagarde said that some African oil exporters will struggle in case oil prices remain low, and she warned of instability once the United States starts monetary policy normalization.
There's no question in our mind that Rwanda is amongst the African countries that are rising. Equally, given the potential shocks, the headwinds, if you will, that are hitting the global economy, we believe that the strong policies that have laid the foundations of a resilient Rwanda economies need to continue to be observed. La question de l'impact.
You asked about the impact of terrorism in Sahel on the economic growth in Africa, and in particular on investments. I believe we have to distinguish between countries that are directly affected, which raises some questions and uncertainties in terms of investment, and other countries that are not the target of threats.
The American tech giant Apple has reported the biggest quarterly profit ever reported by a public company. Its net profit reached $18 billion in its first fiscal quarter, thanks to record sales of its iPhone, especially in China. Apple moved about 75 million units of the iPhone in the 3 months to December 27. That was way ahead of any analyst expectations. Its cash pile is now $178 billion. That said, sales of the iPads do continue to disappoint. They were down 22% in 2014 compared to a year earlier. Apple CEO Tim Cook said the company's new mobile payment service, Apple Pay, which lets you buy products from selected merchants in the United States and elsewhere, is in its first inning. And the company would consider adding new features as it looked to expand outside the United States. Quick run through the markets here for you. Bit of a mixed bag across the board today. Negative numbers in Nairobi and in Egypt. Positive gains, however, not very large ones, though, in Nigeria. Year to date, however, the Nigerian market is down 13% already. We're barely out of January as it is. The EGX30, on the other hand, fairly strong, up 10.5% in the year so far. We'll have an in-depth look at the real estate markets across Africa next. And French investors are going to scout for investment opportunities in Zimbabwe thanks to an end to EU sanctions. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. We help you make sense of the fast-changing African business landscape. We take you where the business is happening. Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
Sustainable development and a commitment to developing partnerships with Africa. Some of the key phrases already used at the Africa Global Business Forum here in Dubai.
There is a need for a predictable environment in which investors have to put their money.
Welcome back to the program. Let's talk about real estate across the African continent. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors is a public benefit professional organisation based in London. It's currently working with surveying organisations in several African countries, Ghana, Kenya and South Africa, the key ones, to collaborate on capacity building on international standards in the building sector and real estate as well. Now, the institution promotes and enforces high professional qualifications and standards and accredits over 100,000 professionals across the world. Let's get you some more details on that. Louise Brooks-Smith is a global president of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. She's live with me in studio right now. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Thank
Welcome
you very much.
to Kenya.
Thank you.
What informed the decision to use Ghana, Kenya, South Africa as a launch pads for your access to sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, it was really that we were looking at Africa. We've been looking at the market trends. We can't look at the whole continent, but we have been led by a lot of the market research. So about 2 years ago, we started looking at it in detail because as a global professional organisation, we're responding to the market. You very kindly gave a very good introduction to the organisation. Thank you for that. You got it spot on. A lot of people think that we're a trade body. We're not. Professional organisation, all about international standards, professionalism, ethics, and we self-regulate and we have a lot of training to our name. We wanted to address the market in Africa. So we looked at a number of criteria. We looked predominantly sub-Saharan Africa. We looked at demographics in individual countries, ease to do trade, business development, FDI, investment coming in. And after 2 sets of research, one general and then one far more detailed that was instigated by the University of Cape Town, it became apparent that there were 3 very clear hubs. South Africa, where we've already had a base for some time, Kenya to serve East Africa, and Ghana to serve West Africa. They came out best. They looked as though they were the right centres to serve the general areas. And we're very pleased in the way that it's been going.
Speaking of the report that you guys released last year in September,
Yes.
I believe, that's had a fairly detailed set of case studies on 5 separate African markets.
Yes.
One key thing that kept on recurring was a lack of data
Yeah.
on real estate markets across Africa. From the perspective of a professional organisation, not necessarily an investor, what sort of data do you need on a regular basis?
Well, I think it does reflect, although from an organisational point of view, it's always useful to have that research. We've got links to academia and to the large international consultancies. But that data is vital for investment to have confidence into going into various places. So you're looking at capital cost, you're looking at yields, you're looking at return on your investment. So as a professional body, we're reflecting what industry wants to see. They want confidence to move into markets, so that data is quite critical to be able to give them that confidence.
And also covers things like the regulatory environment, what's the process for getting building approval plans, what standards are required, and so on and so forth.
And it was part of the criteria that we did look at when we were looking at individual countries. You know, ease of doing business, the red tape behind the scenes.
Right, let's talk about South Africa. Again, referring to the report in September last year, you argue that it remains an attractive market for real estate investment. Returns there fairly attractive to investors. But from the perspective of observers, you're looking at a country with high household debt levels. GDP growth has essentially been falling over the last 4 years. Why is it still attractive?
I think it's all relative, and you've got to remember that investors are looking on that global stage. I think the attraction of South Africa is because of its mature market. It is by far the more mature market.
It's the easiest to get into if, say, you're from Europe and somewhere else.
It's established, more established. So there is that degree of comfort, there's a degree of confidence, and the data is available as well. So that market information is available. Not so much, it isn't as available in the same way and to the same depth elsewhere across the continent.
Skill shortages, lastly. This, of course, was another recurring theme right across the report. Tanzania, South Africa, Kenya, pretty much the same story.
Yeah.
What's the problem here? Are we not training enough people, or is it that we're training plenty of people in the field required, but the market doesn't need those skills?
Believe me, it's not a continent issue, it's a global issue. Skill shortages and a skills gap is a major problem, not only in the construction, property, real estate industry, but in all professions. We're taking it very seriously, and it's part of my presidential platform. Diversity is a major issue. So collaboration with other organisations, a bigger pool of people to attract into the industry, getting education right so people understand that the built environment and careers in the built environment is a fantastic opportunity. So those kids, 14, 15-year-olds, thinking about a career, we have to start somewhere, and we've got to start back at selling the attraction of a career in the property industry. Indeed.
We'll have to leave it there for the time being, but thank you very much for your input today. Really
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Right, we've been speaking to Louise Brooks-Smith. She's the Global President of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors from London. Now, moving on swiftly to Zimbabwe. It's reaping the dividends after lifting a decade-long trade embargo with the EU. A 10-member business delegation from France, no less, is in the country to explore investment opportunities over there. This is the largest visit of its kind in years. Farai Mokutuya has more on what's hot tonight.
After more than a decade in the cold, Zimbabwe is renewing ties with some old friends. This week, top French private sector investors are in town to try and kickstart projects in various sectors, including power generation, construction, telecommunications and manufacturing. Their first port of call was to meet the president.
We have 10 companies with us. Their combined GDPs, their combined returns amounts to close to $200 billion.
200 billion.
They employ together about 500,000 people. So these are very big companies, major global companies who are looking at investment and trade prospects with Zimbabwe.
They were given assurances about the security of their interests here, a market they intend to operate in for the long haul.
Going for a long-term partnership means, as I said to the President and to Minister, that it means that we have some guarantees. And guarantees for us meaning that even with the process of indigenization, we are sure that we keep the majority of the ownership of our companies. If we are willing to have some local partnerships, including in the ownership of some companies, we got some insurance on that.
Zimbabwe's empowerment laws, previously blamed for scaring away potential investors, have been loosened to attract more inward investment. The move could help turn pent-up international interest into actual investment on the ground.
Zimbabwe is open to investment from any part of the world, and we are making every effort that is necessary to create a conducive environment.
Among the businesses represented in the French delegation is Alstom, a global leader in power generation and transmission, one of the sectors that Zimbabwe is struggling to upgrade in order to meet a crippling energy deficit. The delegation is due to meet the Minister of Energy on Thursday. Farai Mokutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Still in Zimbabwe, citizens in the country have been engaging in irrigation schemes as part of efforts to improve food security overall in order to sustain their livelihoods and those of their families as well. Communities in Nyanga have received water pumps which are set to further improve the operations and the output of various irrigation schemes over there.
Zimbabwe's small-scale farmers and communities in Nyanga district Manicaland, who have set up irrigation schemes to be more self-sufficient, received a much-needed shot in the arm following a donation of water pumps from the Chinese government.
And I'm very grateful to the Chinese ambassador and the Chinese government for coming up with this donation. It's going to go a long way, as we had today, in making sure that the community agricultural projects, particularly the community gardens, are going to be very successful in terms of increased productivity and also ensuring that the crop that they produce is sufficient to give to their families and of course selling the excess.
Community leaders will now conduct a thorough needs assessment to ensure that the water pumps are distributed to deserving areas to ensure maximum use and improvement of yield. Mr. Mandiwanzira urged Chinese companies to invest in the province, especially in value addition in agriculture. Value addition will ensure economic stability in the province and for the country as a whole.
We want to, early next year, lead a delegation from the constituency, from Nyanga district, to visit some parts of China where we can benefit from companies that we want to encourage to come and invest here. We want to identify an area which has significant companies that do things to add value to what is being produced in Nyanga.
Although some parts of Nyanga are dry, the area is capable to produce a variety of fruits and vegetables as well as timber. The good relations that Zimbabwe has with China have extended across all sectors and will now benefit the people of Nyanga in a huge way.
I simply hope that my country and my people can do more in future for our Zimbabwe friends and brothers.
Zimbabwe continues to strive to ensure food security is achieved, and if farm products are processed, agriculture will become more profitable for the communities. Leslie Mirungu, CCTV.
Quick run through commodity prices. Oil still very much under the $49 a barrel mark on the benchmark Brent crude. Tea auctions for the month of January, they're over, at least for the time being. The next ones will be taking place in the 2nd and the 3rd of February, so that should be fairly interesting to watch. Strong demand from Pakistan and Egypt. Coming up next, times are changing and getting your preferred cuisine on the table at home or at work is now possible just by browsing. We'll have more of that when we come back. Welcome back to the program. Now, imagine for a moment, if you will, ordering pretty much any sort of cuisine you want from virtually any restaurant of your choice in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, from your desktop or from your phone. Now, that may be normal in other parts of the world, but across sub-Saharan Africa, this is something that's just now taking off. HelloFoods.com is an online food court that allows you to order pretty much any food you want from a selection of your favorite restaurants. Here's Mahia Mutia with more on Grassroots tonight.
Kenya's per capita income is growing, and so is its people's appetite for the finer things in life. Just a few years back, if you wanted a meal, the best you could do is walk into a restaurant and be served. But today, any cuisine you want in Nairobi can be ordered using your desktop or mobile phone application.
So what we've done is we've created a very sophisticated but easy to use website and mobile application, which is available on iOS, Android and Windows, where people can very quickly come online, they enter their location, we show them a list of restaurants that can deliver to their location. The menus are all online or on the app, and people just literally click on the items that they want to order, and then that food gets delivered to them.
Thank you for calling Hello Food. Helen speaking. How may I help you?
Hello Food is a venture of Africa Internet Holding and was launched in Nairobi, Kenya in 2012. Customers using their desktop will go to www.hellofood.com and place an order.
Okay, anything else to go with the meal? Maybe a drink?
A team of customer service workers are standing by with their orders, which they then channel to their customer's restaurant of choice. For customers using their mobile device, they will download the Hello Food application, indicate their location, choose their restaurant of choice, and select dishes they want delivered to them. A team of riders then pick their meals from the restaurants.
Hello Food are doing well. Through it, we are getting more customers. Then to order through online, it is well, like it doesn't take time. They have good riders. They take your food on time.
I managed to get it on my phone, and the minute I used it, it was so convenient to me. I don't really like going out to get food, but with the application, I managed to get my favorite restaurant, give them a run, and the food was delivered to me.
When we launched 2 years ago in Nigeria, I certainly wasn't sure exactly what the reaction would be, but it's been dramatic. I think in Africa you have a fantastic performance, especially for mobile technology.
But as Hello Food CEO Joe Falter explains, there have been challenges venturing into the African market.
Unlike, let's say, back home in the UK, if I want to buy something or use a service, the first place I will immediately always look for it is on the internet. And the challenge for us is in managing that transition of people in our African markets who actually aren't quite at that stage yet.
In Kenya, Hello Food has partnered with restaurants such as Steers, Naked Pizza, Debonair's and Big Square. Hello Food also has operations in Nigeria, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Senegal, Ghana, Morocco, Algeria and Cote d'Ivoire. Mahe Mutwa, CCTV.
Let's make a quick run through currencies here for you. As we mentioned in the last hour, the Naira, of course, hitting yet another record low around 192 to the American dollar. Strong numbers coming through as well as far as the dollar is concerned across the board. It's up about 1% against the Kenyan shilling today, up 4% against Egyptian pound, although that's because of the devaluation that's taking place up there. And of course, the Naira is still taking an absolute beating on that front as well. Now, before we go, here's what we're working on for tomorrow's program. African leaders are converging for the annual meeting at the African Union headquarters in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. The continent's economy in 2015 will be in focus. We'll bring you insights, analysis, reactions and opinions from Addis Ababa. Also tomorrow, we'll be telling you about a Ugandan entrepreneur who quit his job in medicine to focus on building and selling safe household cooking gas in Kampala. All that and more is in the pipeline for you in the next 24 hours. But that's it for today's edition of the program. As usual, we like hearing what you think about what we do around here. globalbusinessafrica@cctv.com is the email address to use. And of course, when we're not on air, Facebook and Twitter are your ports of call. Thank you for watching. I'm Ramanyan.